Hello guys, you're welcome to this video. In the last video, we talked about the select clause, the from clause, and the where clause. In this video, we'll be talking about the group by clause and the order by clause. We're going to be talking about the having clause as well. Okay, so the group by clause, this clause groups rows that have the same values from a table into summary rows. So we'll get to understand how to use this group by clause. And then the order by clause, this is used to sort results returned in a query, either in ascending or descending order. Okay, so if you just want to see your result in a descending order or in ascending order, we can use order by clause. So sorting is done using this clause. The having clause, this clause filters the result of an SQL query based on condition applied after the group by. So filtering is done using this clause. Okay, so the having clause is just like it does the same work like where clause, but the difference between the having clause and the where clause is that the having clause can be used for an aggregate functions, or we cannot use the where clause with an aggregate function. Okay, so let's just head on to our SQL Query Management Studio and try to understand more about this command statement. Okay, so we have a problem here that we'll solve. Okay, when we solve this problem, you get to understand more how you can use group by clause. Okay, so a question is here. Let us write a query that will show the total sales for 2015. Okay, so in our pass and post, so just come over here and just set the database you want to use. You want to use pass and post database. Okay, so we want to see the total sales the company made in 2015. To do that, we must first of all write the first command, which is select. Since we are looking for total sales, we use an aggregate function, which is sum, to sum up the total sales for us. So the total sales, we said select sum. So in the group by, we want to group this the columns into group. Okay, so to do that, we first of all have to write select sum. Okay, to understand how to use group by clause, let's solve this problem. Total amount USD. This is the total amount of sales made. If you come over here to this side, we have the batch and process. You come over to the order table. You just click on order table and see the columns that are contained. Just look at this area on your left hand side. You check through these are the list of columns that are contained in the order table. Okay, so we can see the total amount USD over here. So total amount USD is a column now in the order table. Okay, so that is why I'm writing total amount USD. It is a column. It is the total amount USD is a column in an order table. Okay, so we want to use this aggregate function sum to sum this total amount USD. Okay, so we are done with that. So once you're done with that, we are going to use the alias. We are going to rename this column later on. Okay, so let's just list another column. So we say this part because we want to know the total amount of sales. We want to know the total sales that was made in the year 2015. So this date part is a date function. Okay, it's a date function. So like function has an open bracket and a closed bracket. Okay, so a function, a function by an open and closed bracket. So date part is a date function. So we say date part, since we're looking for the year, so we just put yy, and then we say accord at. And then once you're done with that, we have here our aggregate function that is summing up this total amount USD, the total sales made by the company, and we have this date part function that contain the year and the accord at. Okay, so we can just rename this column as year. You can choose to write AS here as year. This AS is a short form for alias. Okay, so you are renaming this column called date part YY and accord at. You are renaming as year. So you come here, you can do the same thing here as you can say total. Total sales. Okay, be careful. In the other video I talked about space. Do not keep any space in between two words. Once you do that, you're going to have an error. Okay, so either you use underscore over here or you just close up that space. Okay, so now you're done with listing out the two columns that is going to be presented once you run the query. So now the next command is the from clause. So you say from where? From which table do you want to draw a filter this information? From the orders table. So you come over here. Once you write OR, it will show here over here orders. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do now is the where clause. Now the condition is that we need a total sales for 2015. We don't need a total sales for 2014, 2016, 2018. We just need a total sales for 2015. So to do that, we use the where clause. So where date part now is date part. So you just have to copy it. Be careful, don't copy the alias, just a column. So we just paste it here. where that part is equal to what year? 2015. So once you're done with that, we're going to group. We use group by. This is where we use group by now. We're going to group it by this. Be careful you don't group the aggregate function where we have the aggregate function. We group where we have this other date function over here. So let's say we have another list of other columns. Let's say we have the date part function that has months or days. You can include all of them in this group by function. Okay. But since we don't have, we just use only this date part function. Okay. So once you're done, we just highlight and then run the query. Okay, so you can see the results here. You see the column that we rename over here, total sales, and the one we rename over here. Okay, so in the year 2015, the company made over 500. The company made 5,752,004.94. Okay, so that is the total sales that the company made in 2015. Okay, so let's say let us write a query that will show the total sales for 2016. Okay, so let's solve this problem. Let us write a query that will show the total sales for 2016. To do that, we do like solve like we did the other one. Select the sum function, the total amount USD. Once you do that, you can just rename it, write it the name. Let's say total sales. Total sales. Okay, remember to put your comma to separate the two columns. So we have the next one, the date part function. The date part function here, occurred as, you can name it as year. Then from where do you want to draw this information, from which table? And that's our orders table. Okay. Now we use the where clause to put the condition. The condition is that we now want the year 2016. So we say date part bracket open y occurred at is equal to 2016. And then we'll group this information by date part. You just copy it. Be sure not to copy the layer so you don't have an error. Okay, so once you're done, it's on the line. You notice that this line, this word is being on the line already, shows that there's an error there. So let's just fix. If occurred at, let's just fix that error. Okay, I didn't put C. Okay, it's fixed now. Okay, so we can run our query. So you can see in the year 2016, the company made over 12,864,917.92. So the company made more sales in 2016 than it made in 2015. Okay, so now let's solve another problem on group by. What is the total amount of sales made in the month of April in 2015? What is the total amount of sales made in the month of April in 2016? We want to know the total amount of sales that the company made in the month of April in 2015. To do that, you first of all write the select command to select the sum total amount USD. Okay, the total amount USD. We call it total sales. Total sales, comma. We write the date part function here. Occurred at. We call it here. And then since we're also looking for the month, the sales made in the month, we are going to include a date part function using the month. Okay, so we say date part function, stand for month, comma, occurred at, and then we close that bracket. We can name that column month. Okay, month. And when you're done, you enter the next one. Command is from orders, and then the next command is where the condition where. Now we have two conditions. Now the year, we're looking for the total amount of sales made in 2015. That's the first condition. And we also we're looking at the month of April, the total amount made in the month of April. We're not interested in the total amount made in December. We are interested in the total amount made in the month of April only. To do that, we just write date part. Let's just copy this where the part year occur at is equal to 2015, and this is where you use the and command. You use and operator over here. This is where you use the and operator, okay, to join these two conditions together. So we say day part, now day per month is equal to 04. Now April has the month number 4, so we use 04 as April. And then once you are done with that, we use group by function, then to group this information by date part year and date part month. Okay, so you just copy everything over here, and then you paste it where we have the group by. Okay, just delete, just clean. You see that the year is underlined. It shows that you have an error there. So we just click on the month, delete the month. So now we can run our query now. So we can see from here that in the month of April, you can see where you have our month here, month 4, which is April. We have the year 2015, and the total sales the company made in the month of April 2015, the year 2015, is 451,753.57. Okay, so we'll get to the next question. We hope that you understand this concept. Okay, so the next question is let's look at the minimum quantity, of gypsum ceiling that was sold in the month of April, or let's say the month of February 2015. Okay, so we want to know the minimum quantity of gypsum ceiling that was sold in the month of February 2015. Okay, so gypsum ceiling is gypsum ceiling is a product here in the other table. Okay, so if you come over to the other table where we have the columns over here, you're going to see the list of quantity. So let's look at the minimum quantity of gypsum ceiling that was sold in the month of February 2015. Okay, to do that, we just say select minimum, gypsum ceiling, and then close. Now the mean here is an aggregate function. Okay, so let's just go to our slide and get to see what an aggregate function is. Aggregate function in SQL perform calculations on a set of values and return a single values. Okay, they are used to summarize data and provide overall information about the data set. Okay, so these are a common example of aggregate function. We have the count function, which we have used earlier on in the other video. We have the sum function, which we have just used to solve a problem. Now we have the average, we have the mean. We want to solve problem of mean function now. We also have the maximum function, which returns the maximum value in a column. So the mean function returns the minimum value in a column. Okay, so let's get back to our studio. Okay, so now we're looking for the minimum quantity of gypsum ceiling that was sold in the month of February. So to do that, we say select mean, which is an aggregate function, and then we put comma, we write depart function. Depart function, we use year, occurred at, we can call it year. We now use another depart function for month because we're looking for the month of February. So we use occurred at. Okay, so once we're done, we go to another command, which is the from statement. So we say from orders, and then we now put a condition where dead part is equal to the year of 2015, and then we'll use an operator, an AND operator. We just come here, change to month. So which month is February? So the month number for February is 2, so we use 02. Okay, and then we'll group this information by day part year and day part month. Okay, so let's just rename this day part month over here. Okay, so we come here, just copy everything here, and then we're going to write group by. We'll group this information by these 2 day parts. Group by. Please note that we don't include the aggregate function in the group by. Group by statements. Note that we don't include this aggregate function in the group by. We only include the other columns that was listed over here. Okay, so and also take note that you don't include the alias over here in the group by. So let's just bring the year out. So we are left with the date function and the date function for the year and date function for the month. Okay, so when you have this on a red line on the line, know that you made a mistake over there, so you just fix it. Okay, so you just fix it over there. I'll call at. Okay, so okay, let's use close quantity here. Close quantity, okay, it's showing up over here. Close quantity. Okay, so let's just change the question over here to close quantity. Close quantity. Okay, so we select the minimum close quantity for the month of February in 2015. Okay, so if we run this query now, okay, so we can see now, that in the month of February 2015, the minimum close quantity was 0. You can see from here in the output. So the minimum quantity was 0. Okay, so let's see the minimum quantity for postal quantity. You can see, come over here, you see postal quantity over here where we have the database here, postal quantity. So when you just come here, just write postal quantity. Let's see the minimum quantity for postal quantity. Okay, so once you're done, just run here. Okay, it's still 0. Okay, so let's see the maximum quantity. Maximum is an aggregate function. We just explained that. So let's see the maximum quantity. So we see that in the year 2015, in the month of February, the company had 4,901 postal quantity. Okay, so let's compare and see what we have for close quantity. Go to close quantity. So the company had 1,246 close quantity, the maximum close quantity in 2015. In 2015, the month of February. Okay, so we have come to the end of this video. See you in the next video.